impact mapping kind of training that I had done before, so that seemed fine. But I want to make sure that you guys all get introduced. And today, is it Building Goodness isn't here?
Yes.
Yes, Building Goodness isn't here because they have a board retreat today. And so they have not gotten this information before, and so we wanted to make sure that we gave them the opportunity to do that. Today is the last, well, actually we do have a day of how to graph, which is a little bit lecture-y, except everybody has their laptop, so it's different. Today's the last day of lecture. After today, we're working with your actual surveys. But let's go around and just do introductions, just so that Amelia knows who you are and you know who they are. And can we start again here?
Sure, I'm Joyce Hudak with ADUP Albemarle Housing Improvement Program. We do renovations for low-income families.
Matthew Slass with the British Progressive Arts Initiative. We're an arts organization in Belmont that uses art as a way of addressing the needs of the community.
And I'm Serena Greta, and I work at the Bridge as well.
Tyler Herman, Blue Ridge Area Food Bank. We work with partner agencies across Central and Western Virginia to feed low-income families and individuals in need.
Cheryl Cooper, also with the Blue Ridge Area Food Bank.
Barbara Hutchinson with the Mary Louise Thomas Jefferson area.
Lisa Frazier, also with the United.
I'm Susan Simpson with Montpelier Initiative.
And Emily Voss, also with the Montpelier Foundation.
Can you guys talk just a little bit about what Montpelier does and what your roles are?
Okay, sure. Montpelier is the home President James Madison, for those of you who aren't familiar with that. And we work with the Center for the Constitution, which is specifically seeking to educate folks about the Constitution and civic engagement. We work with teachers, law enforcement officers, international visitors, and to some extent students to bring that civic mindedness.
And what's your role?
I'm the program manager.
I'm the Education and Outreach Manager.
Emily Day Dunn with Java, Jefferson Area Board for Aging. We provide programs and services primarily for individuals 60 and 5.
And Ginger Dillard, Java.
Great, thank you guys. It also helps me kind of continue to get your names all stuck into my head. So I did make goals for today. Not in time to put them on the I sent this to Dana and I was like, oh, I should have put a slide in there about goals. But what we're going to do is, the first thing we're going to do is sort of go, just quickly review impact maps and make sure that now that that's sat in your head for a week, make sure that you have any questions that you want to think about or how it affects your organization, that we can do that. Then we're going to spend the majority of the time learning about different kinds of surveys and different ways of asking questions. And you guys have the handout, so you can take it like a little, tiny textbook or something. And we can also send you the link so that you can have it be bigger and you can click on the links yourself. So we'll talk about how to design different types of surveys and how to design questions. And then embedded in that, we will also discuss different creative ways of administering surveys, or how to get surveys into the process without having to necessarily give people a piece of paper. And we talked some about that last week, but we can talk more about it. And I encourage you through the whole time that we're talking to think about your own surveys and your own way of doing business, and how would you embed them into what you're doing, and how would that work? And to go ahead and ask those questions. This is a really good opportunity to share some of the challenges that we have and think creatively together about how to do that. I do always think that the more you can make the survey sort of part of what you do, the better that is. So, if you, in talking to Camp Holiday Trails, I was like, you should just have the rating sheets that the counselors are supposed to do on their clipboards while they're out with the kids, and it should just be part of the program. Like, part of your job is to rate the kids as they go through the day. Like, it doesn't have to be outside of the process. Or in talking with the Paramount, I had noticed that I had to go in and sign up for, make an account at the Paramount in order to buy tickets, and I was like, you should be asking me some questions. You should be asking me some demographic questions. You should be asking me something. that would help you know about me and what I want and what I do in that process. It's already there. I've also thought, and I've only seen this done once at a gas station, but you know when you go in and you slide your credit card and you have to, you know, click yes and, you know, this is the right amount, and then you have to do your signature and put done. I'm like, before I sign, they should put a question in there about customer service. Was your customer service acceptable? Yes, no. I'm already clicking yes, no on one other sheet. I'm going to do it. And so you just want to get it as embedded into what you're doing as possible so that it doesn't feel extra. Now, sometimes it's unavoidable for it to be extra, but it doesn't have to be extra. It can be part of people's applications for the work that they're doing with you. It can be part of their exit interview when they are leaving your service. It can be part of what you train your staff to do, just like you're training them to do anything else. All right. Oh, you don't have to worry about the class, of course. So the first question we might ask is, why measure anything? Why are we measuring what we're doing? And I'm wondering why you are measuring. Why do you want to measure what you're doing? Why do we care? Go ahead, yes.
Well, we have a variety of reasons, but one is just, I mean, satisfaction of those that we serve and that we provide service for and their families, making sure that we're meeting their need. You know, if we're not, then we need to rework what we're doing.
Yeah, so you want to make sure that people aren't just coming to you out of desperation, but that when they come to you, they're getting something really helpful. And that if there's more of their need that you can do, or you can provide the service in a better way, that you're interested in doing that. So that's basically feedback to your program to make sure that it's high quality, and also feedback to your program so that you can evolve services to meet the changing needs of your constituency. Other reasons to measure things.
Efficiency and sustainability.
What does that mean?
Is there any way we can improve the program logistics to cut down on staff time or volunteer time? Is there any way we can reduce program costs, make it more sustainable in the long run? And on top of that, being able to share the impact with our program funders.
Yeah, so you can use the information sort of in a performance management way, like Java was talking about, to help increase efficiency. So like if you're doing something that people don't really care about or that they aren't using, well, let's not do that anymore. And if you can ask your staff or some of the main people that are using your service whether or not you're doing it in an effective way. And then you also want to be able to show your funders what kind of change you're actually leading to in people's lives, which is sort of satisfaction on another level, isn't it? I mean, it's not just like, yes, I liked what you did, but this is how it impacted me. This is what it means to me that I get the service. Are there any other reasons you measure things?
We use it for marketing also. Part of our survey now says, you know, give us a comment about AHIP, or somebody says something really wonderful, we'll put that up.
Absolutely, yes. So you can use the positives parts to be able to, I mean, you guys were sort of talking about using some of the negative parts to increase efficiency, which is great, because a lot of times we just sort of think the negative parts are really sad. But in fact, the negative parts are just the next priority. But then you also use the positive parts to show what you're doing, to show how you're doing it. Anything else?
We work with a lot of outside scholars, and depending on how people feel about their experience with a particular scholar, it might help inform whether we bring them back, whether we don't.
Absolutely, yeah. So it helps you know what pieces of what you're doing are things that people are really engaged with. So not just overall whether their satisfaction is good, but whether or not there's an aspect to it that they've really connected to that you want to replicate over and over and over again.
Depending on who you're surveying, it's an opportunity also to strengthen your relationships with multiple constituents. Like, we're doing a newsletter reader survey right now, and it's just giving our readers and our donors an opportunity to have a voice on why they give to the food bank, how we can improve it, and it creates that strengthened relationship.
I love that. It also can be used in social justice, and it's the same kind of way. Surveys, we often think of them as being something that we are like shouldering people with. Oh my gosh, they have to fill out another survey because we need something. We need funding, or we need good words to say, or we need to know how to improve our program. But it actually, if it's framed right and if it's authentic, you can use it to elevate voice. You can use it to create, to give people a space for their own power, to be able to co-own what you're doing. It's in a way like giving people shares of a corporation, right? If Apple says, okay, all the people that start with us are gonna get a share of our corporation, everybody at Apple works harder. If you give people a voice in what you're doing and you're able to feed that back to them, and they authentically feel like what they say matters, then it matters to them. You don't have to pay them if they feel like it matters to them. Region 10 does a great job with this, and not everybody can do this, because this is all internal to Region 10 as opposed to you guys having to give information back to the rest of the community. But like Region 10, after, they have an annual picnic. And, it really, I've been on the board and now I'm staff, and I love the picnic. They have all sorts of funny games and there's food, and it's just a time to sit and hang out with folks. And after the picnic, they survey the staff and they ask what they liked about it and what they didn't like about it. And then, like 2 weeks later, they say, this is what you guys said and this is what we're gonna change next year. So then it becomes as fun as possible, right? Like people, there's always gonna be people that don't go to the picnic. I go to the picnic and I don't do the games. But I love going and hanging out. It's just a time to talk to people when we're not like dealing with people with serious mental illness, which can be very heavy. And you usually get a nice water bottle out of it. So it's an opportunity to give people voice, to create space for their opinions, to engage them in a process of improvement, or engage them in a process of developing what happens. One of the things that CNE asks you on the bottom of this survey is, what other courses do you want? They really care. If you guys say that you want a course in something, they're gonna go out and find a way of providing that to you, but they don't know what you want, right? So that's a wonderful thing to be able to do. I think what it also does is it can give you a more complete picture of what you do. It gives you just more perspective. It makes sure that you don't become myopic in the way in which you think about what you do. It helps you understand what unintended consequences of what you do might be. It helps you understand whether or not what you do might accidentally make somebody's life more difficult, which is not what any of us are trying to do. Or it might help you understand how what you did actually improve something that you didn't even know it was improving, right? I mean, with food, you can think about that so clear. I mean, people might do better at work if they have food, and that's not necessarily what you're measuring, but people might say, this is what I needed in order to be able to actually make more money, is to have this taken care of. I had more mental space, more emotional space, and my belly was full. So there's all sorts of wonderful things that can come out of it. I would imagine for some of the people that you serve, their life just isn't better, but their family's life is better. Maybe they live longer. Maybe they have more energy to spend with some grandkids or something like that. You don't know. But these are opportunities for you to really see the whole picture. We often think we're doing something that we're not.
I think it also brings up some opportunities to see what the unmet needs are in the community and how there can be other
Absolutely.
collaborations with partner agencies that might be only tangentially related to what we're doing.
Absolutely. It totally spurs creativity. It totally spurs the opportunity to have connections that you didn't know were there. It totally even if what you find out is not something about your mission, you can use that information to inform someone else's mission.
In one of our programs, we don't see the client ever as prescription assistance program. And we expanded, we get to one from a foundation that requires the survey, but the survey is for the foundation. And so we expanded that survey last year, and what we found is a good percentage of our clients had no idea it was the United Way providing prescription assistance.
So it also, this is a good one. It can be used for education. Surveys can be used for education. So one of the things that your survey can do is help brand you, help people know who's behind that service. It's actually advertising in and of itself. The Senior Center has, in their annual survey, they ask whether or not people are aware that they can get a no questions asked scholarship, right? That's not because they care how many people know that they get no questions asked scholarship. That's because they want to make sure that everybody who takes the survey is aware that they could get a no questions asked scholarship, or that one of their friends could. And when I read that, I was informed. I was like, I didn't know you did that. And then I was able to talk to people who were not wealthy enough to be able to afford the scholarships and say, you know what, you could go there and you could do activities there if you want. You don't have to worry about it. And they're not gonna ask you any questions. You don't have to go in and defend why you can't afford it. I would guess that it also helps the paying members feel better about their membership, right? Because people who are going in and able to pay their membership, or maybe pushing just a tiny bit to pay their membership, knows that part of their membership is going to help other people who want to be engaged in this opportunity to be able to engage in it for free or for less, right? Okay, I want you just to remind you of the data cycle story where you're collecting your information and you're discovering the elephant, right? You're figuring out what the story is. What do we know? You have an opportunity here to do something different and change or evolve or grow or increase or create relationships or to brand or whatever it is you're going to do, and you're collecting more information, and this is just the cycle of using the information you have to inform your choices. We do this all the time. You do this with your budget. You do this at home with your budget. I mean, how many people, well, my husband loves numbers and to so we have a budget. He can show us how much we've spent in each of these categories. With your business budget, you probably do the same thing, whether or not you do it at home. You know exactly how much you're spending in each of your categories. And when you look at it, you're able to say, did we get what we wanted for that money? Is that a good investment? Is that how we want to be spending our resources? Oh my heavens, why did we spend so much on paper? What is going on with that? Right? You also do this at the grocery store, trying to figure out what it is you want to purchase and what the cost benefits are of buying name brand cereal and buying no name cereal. All of this is we collect data and analyze it and change our behavior every single day. How many people used the new Parkway this morning? I did. I actually went out of my way. I drove through the neighborhood and came through. I just wanted to see what it felt like. I felt like, I don't know how, I have little kids, so in the Cars movie, when they pave the road, Mater goes, he's like, new road, new road. That's how I felt. New road. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so much better. Like you just got through to, it took like 4 minutes to do what it would have taken me 15 or 20 minutes to do.
15 minutes early, because I
Yes,
how long it would
I
take me.
was so thrilled.
I was almost late because I didn't know. And I was like, shot by and turned around and shot by again.
And I was careful, I was a little nervous because I was like, somebody might be coming the wrong way down the road, right?
Yeah.
It's a new road. But I collected some information this morning, I discovered something, and now I'm totally using it every day to get downtown. I live over by the high school, so I'm just gonna go, phew, oh, so excited. Anyway, we do it every day. I do want to take 1 minute to talk about the difference between surveys and questionnaires and tests. A test is what you take in school. A test assesses how much knowledge you have. Okay? That's just what it is. It measures the degree of information you have. If you have a pre-test and a post-test, it looks at the amount of information you have coming in and the amount of information you have coming out. I'm going to try to get you guys not to think about pre and post tests. I don't think they're useful for the work that you guys are doing very much. But I do want you just to know what tests are. Surveys, questionnaires, and polls are the same thing. Polls tend to be like 1 or 2 yes/no questions. You know, they call you on the phone and they ask you a poll question. Surveys and questionnaires just tend to be, they're the same thing. It's just different kinds of wording. Researchers would never say they're giving people surveys. They would always talk about the questionnaires. I don't know why. It doesn't make any difference. Okay. Let's just review our impact map real quick. Because in order to have a good survey, we have to start with what you want to know. We have to know what it is you're trying to ask. What do you care about? What change in people's knowledge, skills, abilities are you trying to figure out. And if you remember, we start with your mission. What are you specifically doing in order to reach a vision, which is big and involves lots of other people? And what are the specific goals or program areas that you're working on? All right, come on, there we go. Then what resources do you need in order to be able to actualize those goals and afford to provide the activities, strategies, or programs that you do every single day? So this is basically your programming plan, what you do. It's the picture of what you do, and it's all the people and all of the money that you need to do your work. Then you go to work every day and you do something. You serve a certain number of people. You have a certain number of speakers. You have a certain number of people who eat your food. You have a certain number of people who see your art. You have a certain number of programs that you provide. And then that, hello, changes people's life in some way. Right? You don't just produce it, although that's very important, but it changes people's lives. Then people walk out satisfied, full, enriched, housed, wealthier, knowledgeable, more stable. What else? Knowing how to build a house, knowing how to do a college application, knowing more about the Constitution. And then they take that information and they go about their life. They take whatever they got from you and they live, and lots of other things happen and interact in complex ways with that. And their life in the long term has changed. They change their behavior, they change their attitudes, they change the way in which they think or approach the world. And then that is then that is some small part of how you are increasing graduation rates, decreasing homelessness, decreasing obesity, ensuring food stability. Is that what it's called? It's not stability, it's called security. But you're one piece of that. Lots of people are working on that, but we collect in our community and all over the country very clear public health indicators of the health of our community, for which you are one piece. And if everybody's doing that well, you will reach your vision, right? And then you take this information, this data, and you look at it and you say, is this data acceptable to us? And what is this data telling us about how we're doing our job and how we might want to change it? There's no magic answer about how much productivity is enough, or how much skill acquisition is enough, or how much behavior change in the long term is enough. There's no magic number. You have to know it inside the context of what you're doing, and you are the expert in interpreting the meaning of that data. In scientific research, the environment in which something happens is very highly controlled. They create a space where people come in and do the same exact thing, and they control the environment so that when they look at the data, they're able to say, this is due to different kinds of things. But there's no magic number in research either that says whether or not it's good. Not even statistics, which I'll break off and tell you a little tiny bit about, but you don't need them. There's no magic number. They just think about it and understand the results in the context of the experiment. You guys understand your results in the context of your reality. Your job is harder than the researcher's job, because you have to be thinking with your team, which is why you want a team, what reduced our productivity this year? Why did people say they were less satisfied? Or why did people not say they got a lot of knowledge in that? Is it the way we asked the question? Was it because we had a new instructor? Was it because, we had a change and we had a city council change or board of supervisors change? Is it because of the recession? Is it because more people are referring to us, right? So, and sometimes you have to go ask your partners, or you have to ask other people more questions, or you have to look deeper in your data. I did a project as a subcontractor for the state a whole bunch of years ago. They have something called the Family and Child Trust Fund, FACT, and it's like the state level organization that looks at sort of child welfare and things like that, and they had hired a colleague of mine to pull all the data together that we could find on domestic violence or family violence, and then to be able to report trends and make recommendations going forward. So we did this, and we found over time that CPS reports were going up across the state, or let's just say across the state, maybe not all, we looked at different companies. And they wanted us to be able to say, why? And I'm like, I can't tell you why. And they said, well, is it good? And I said, I can't tell you if it's good. I have absolutely no idea. The localities have to look at the context of the data and decide whether or not the context of the data, what the context of the data tells them. Maybe that they are doing a lot of wonderful outreach and the teachers in the community are reporting more cases of child abuse, and we are supporting more kids in Venus families. On the other hand, maybe it's that they brought in a DSS director who had a much tighter interpretation of what constitutes child abuse. And I don't know if I'm a mandated reporter, so I've talked to lots of CPSs around Virginia, and I can tell you that part of their definition of child abuse has to do with capacity of the child protection workers, not just whether or not it meets a criteria for child abuse, right? Or it has to do with how the state is that day, right, because it can change, defining child abuse. And so I don't know, but what I can do is I can give the communities a way of looking at the data and asking the right kinds of questions to be able to tell whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. Maybe people are over-reporting child abuse. Maybe there's a culture of racism or socioeconomic-ism or something like that that's actually just getting a lot of families reported. I don't know. Maybe it's all one agency that's doing the reporting. But you are able to go in with your data team and talk about what does this data mean and how do we want it to change our strategic planning? What activities, strategies, and programs might we need to do or change or alter or evolve? And what resources do we need in order to be able to do that? It could inform goals too, or it could inform sending information out to other organizations. I've worked on lots of organizations. Well, I worked for the Commission on Children and Families for a long time, and basically what we did is we collected data and then we sent it out to organizations and said, do something about this. Think about it and do something about it. Questions, thoughts, comments before we go into some of the details of survey development? Now that you've sat with it for a week. How does it feel to think about your organization in this kind of way? Settling, unsettling, confusing? Oh, come on, you asked me a question. Whoops. Okay. So we're going to focus on immediate outcomes, and we're going to focus on surveys and questionnaires, and I'll explain a little bit about pre-test and post-test, and I don't think that they're helpful. We are going to start by saying, when people walk out of your door, what are you hoping they leave with? And what did they get that you weren't aware of, and what did they get that was good, and what did they get that you weren't aware of that was negative? And what experience did people have? You do want to keep the end product in mind, which is what the impact map helps you do. I love these graphs though, because here's a question that says, really awesome. And then here's, I think, what we often feel like we get are like all this data, which is one of the ways that the impact map and planning can help you not have this. So that you're like really able to focus on the top level questions and then have the data underneath to be able to understand it more. Let's talk about, did we talk about mosaics and shell art last time? Okay. I've talked about this a little bit. I want you guys to think about creating data that looks like this and not like this. And it's not just because this is nicer. When you go and you have data that you just collect, right, like shells on the beach, and you put it together, when you put it together, you are not telling a story. There's no story here. It's symmetrical, it's just where things fit, you fit it to whatever it was that you were sticking it on. It's just a collage. It might look nice, which is probably what you're doing with your data right now. You're making it look nice, but it's not telling us about who you are. It's very two-dimensional. This, however, is also little tiny pieces of found glass. There's actually one online that is out of shells, which is kind of cool. But it's telling a story. It's a piece of art. It has depth. It's not just symmetrical. And as I've talked about before, you could go through and you could be working with a funder who's really only interested in the yellows. And you go, okay, I can give you the yellows. And you work with a funder who's like, I'm interested in the dark spaces. You're like, I can tell you the dark spaces. But when you look at your data, when you think about what it is that you're putting together, you need to have an idea of what the whole story is that you're trying to tell. So, step one is to review your available resources. And here are a lot of resources for how you can find information on surveys that already exist. The Urban Institute also has, are you guys familiar with the Urban Institute's art project? They have like a way of measuring art. It's very community level as opposed to individual level, but they have a lot of information out there. There are lots of questionnaires out there that help you be able to determine what kinds of questions other people have asked and have some basic formats. And it's always good to go out and do a Google search and see what other people are doing, because that's a place to start. It might be a good survey or a bad survey. After this, you'll know whether or not it is, but you have somewhere to start. It broadens your understanding of what you're doing. The second thing you need to do is you need to say, well, how much resources do I have? How can I implement this survey or these questions in a way that actually works inside my organization? So if you want to do surveys and open-ended questions, that doesn't cost a lot of money. And it doesn't cost that much staff time. You do have to enter it, you have to design it, you have to plan it, that kind of thing. But you can just put it out there and have an intern put it in. Or your partner could put it in for you to help you one day. If you want to do focus groups, that's great. That's a good way of being able to get lots of information from a group of people all at one time. But I think it's actually kind of hard to run a focus group in a way that gets